COVID Recovery Fund. That sounds a great idea, doesn't it? You can imagine the Scottish Government representatives talking about that on the television. You know, we'll get X million pounds for the COVID Recovery Fund. People will be thinking, oh, this is going to be helping schools get back on track. It's going to be helping the overstressed NHS. It's going to be helping people that have been involved in businesses that have been destroyed by lockdowns, people who've lost their jobs. Surely that's what the COVID Recovery Fund is for? Well, where was it actually spent? Well, in this video, I'm going to have a look at a few recipients of grants from the Scottish Government's COVID Recovery Fund. Well, here we go. So we're looking at the Communities Recovery Fund. And in particular, we're looking at the grants awarded through the Outfest bursary scheme. So just reading a little here. It says, we're delighted to announce the 9 wonderful recipients of our Outfest bursaries. Thanks to the Scottish Government's Community Recovery Fund number 2, we've been able to provide the following very talented people with bursaries to develop their amazing ideas. Right, here we go. The first one. AJ Patterson, artist based in Dundee, whose work revolves around documenting their own lived experience as a queer person growing up in a heteronormative society. Right, that's all we need to know about those. Right, this next gentleman here. Andy Longmuir is a freelance dance and circus artist based in Edinburgh, is using the Outfest funding to create an aerial skills act. The act inspired by recent personal experiences about the pressures of meeting gendered expectations when being hired as a performer. In other words, he's going to make a performance where he complains about how it's really unfair for him, the system's stacked against him. And he's the one who gets the government money. I mean, if you're straight and an artist or a musician and you want a grant, well, you could just, we're not interested in you. You're just a boring, normal person. You have to be a special person to get the government's money. So he takes the government's money in order to complain about how unfair the system is. Anyway, right, who have we got next? We've got this gentleman, J.D. Stewart, a gay songwriter performer. That's probably all we need to know there. That's why he's got the award. Next one, Ryland Gleaves, composer, performance, voice tutor based in Leith. Using the funding to work on his solo Requiem, that critically examines the idea of a protagonist by and decontextualizing ancient religious text. Right, I couldn't actually find any evidence of this work online, but you can imagine which ancient religious text he's going to be decontextualizing, can't we? Anyway, the government's given him some money. Right, the next one, the image. Conjures up quite nicely the idea of someone running away with money. But anyway, Sarah Smart, Dundee-based filmmaker, photographer, performance artist with an interest in exploring gendered identities and challenging heteronormative ideals. So she's going to use it to conduct informal interviews that will inform the development of photographic portraits that celebrate the unique and diverse individuals that collectively form the LGBTQ+ community in Dundee. So, filmmaker and photographer. So she'll be on that course probably. Filmmaking and photography. So if you're LGBTQ+, get a grant. If you're not, I say, not interested. Right, who have we got next? We next have Simon Krozik. That was my best attempt. First year at Dundee College of Art and Design, I'm guessing, is using his bursary to fund work on a short silent animation, Patience. This piece explores the experiences of a trans person trying to reach out to the NHS for help and the seemingly never-ending waiting list of supposedly accessible services. So, someone making a video complaining about the waiting lists for transgender so-called healthcare. As far as I'm concerned, if the waiting lists were all 30 years, that would be ideal. So, right, if you're the government, though, you've got waiting lists for this so-called transgender healthcare, and that you think that's a problem. So surely if you've got some money to spare, you spend it on providing that service. What is the point of spending the money so someone can make a film telling you need to improve the service? It is absolute madness. Absolute madness. Right, who do we get next? We get to a familiar face. Next, Tom Harlow. Now, we commented recently about his show in Stirling that was for children. The council had arranged it at a council venue. You had to go with a child under 12 to get him. On his website, he describes himself as sort of filthy and degenerate. That's how he describes his performances, and we wouldn't argue with him about that at all. The performances have now been cancelled, we're delighted to say. Anyway, so this all-singing merman who loves to read and recite empowering stories to kids of all ages Funding provided by RFS will be used to work with a scriptwriter, playwright and musical director to finalise the direction of Merman Tom's story. So Merman Tom's story was supposed to be being staged in Stirling, but they withdrew it because of the controversy. But the government paid him to produce this material. This is our advert we made for it. This was a spoof. We took images of him from his website in his adult shows and then showed that this was the person that Stirling Council was promoting to children. Now, of course, the council said, oh, well, his performances for children don't include any of that dodgy stuff. But for a start, someone who describes himself as filthy and degenerate, describes his act like that, do you really want to put that person in contact with children? And also, if children were to go on the internet, let's search him, let's find him, let's have a look what's on his website, they would find all sorts of degenerate filth. Anyway, that's Tom Harlow. Who have we got next? Right, we've next got Rhiannon Mudaliah, is a queer artist and director of colour who focuses on creating socially engaged art film that amplifies minority voices. Well, you get the impression there. This is your taxpayers' money, basically. Now, the last one, last but certainly not least, we have Layla Noble, who is a queer identifying director, producer and playwright from Wales, etc., etc. It's obvious, isn't it? For the Scottish Government, it's just monopoly money. It's like they're playing a game. There's really serious problems to be addressed, but they're quite happy to just fritter away money pushing their own controversial agenda. That's a misuse of taxpayers' money, and also these awards are just point blank discriminatory. They give money to people who are LGBTQ+, and if you're not in that category, if you're not a special person, then forget it. That support is not available. That is discriminatory. But that is the business of the Scottish Government. I mean, this reminds me of the classic case from a few years ago when Humza Yousaf's mum, who runs a charity for Muslim women from a single house in Glasgow, was given a grant to reduce the carbon footprint of that little charity, and they were given £150,000 for 2 years running. Now, as far as I'm concerned, that's just plain corruption. Look at this as well. This is supposed to be a COVID recovery fund. What have these things got to do with COVID recovery? Absolutely nothing. I don't know what the right term is for it. Is it misappropriation of public funds? I don't know. Now, in this case, I disagree with the philosophy being promoted, this LGBTQ plus identity politicking sort of line. I disagree with that. But even if it was a philosophy that I did agree with, I would not be saying, yes, that's right, take money out of the COVID recovery fund and divert it into just promoting people that I happen to agree with. I would say, no, that's wrong. Spend the COVID recovery fund on COVID recovery. That seems quite straightforward to me. Right, so who do you want in the Scottish Parliament holding them to account, being the opposition? If you want the Scottish Family Party to be playing that role, then you need to support us by joining the party right now via the link below. Thanks for watching.